Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome back to the last video in Foundation Paper Piecing Series 2. I have been amazed at how people have fallen in love with foundation paper piecing, and it's really warmed my heart because I know many of you have been like me where I resisted this because it was not intuitive and I was confused, and at times I felt kind of silly. Like, why can't I get this? So thank you for being with me in this series, and hopefully you've been able to show other people in your sewing circle how to do foundation paper piecing and just show them how fun, precise, and adorable these projects are. Now, stay with me to the end of the video because I have an exciting announcement. I can't wait to get to the end of the video and say it. But today is going to be just a quick review. You already know this though. If you've been getting our kits are the way to go, right? Back in the day, I'd grab my pattern and go, nope, I'm going to go do it myself. Why did I do that? Kits are so easy. Number one, you get a beautiful pattern, full color, along with your foundation papers are printed for you. And of course, the stickers our customers love. I don't know of anyone else in our industry that is taking the time and the expense to get high quality stickers that we print with the exact shape, the exact name of that fabric, white, blue, pale blue, whatever that is, to help you stay organized. So this is a quick review. We're at the end of this series, as I said, and if you are just now joining us, welcome. We're so happy you're here. You'll want to check out the first of this series as well as series 1, where we go in depth about how to do foundation paper piecing, but I will do a quick review, so it's fun to be able to watch that. And then if you have more questions, head back and watch the deeper, longer video. But in addition to, in your kit, getting the full color pattern with the foundation papers and the stickers, you're getting those fabrics. And even some of the projects we did had a little bit of prefused laser cut shapes because we just couldn't resist. Okay, let's just dive into this here. Just like we've been doing, of course, we're going to be referring to our instructions to be able to know exactly what size to cut each piece of fabric to. Before you do that, good sizing, press everything out, nice clean cuts, and sticker fabrics as you go. So looking at our shamrock block, I couldn't resist, of course, for St. Patrick's. I'm Irish. I think a lot of people are. We will do a portion of that together. Now, we've done a portion already here. And, once you get the rhythm of TSP, trim, sew, press, you've been hearing me say that now for a couple of years. And it's an acronym that keeps me on track. Okay, I've done trim. What am I doing? Okay. S is sew. What's next? P is press, right? So as a reminder, we're just going to roughly cut around our shapes. We start with the lowest number first. That first fabric has to be glued down and the rest will be sewn. So we'll have just a little bit of glue. This is the Sew Line glue pen. This is a great one to get. There's also refills. I love that it doesn't come through the fabric. It has a nice contact, but later on when I go to remove the paper, it's letting it go. So it's really the right amount of glue. Don't get crazy with some super glue or something like that. This is a very temporary adhesion. So we have all of our fabrics nicely organized with our stickers from D1 all the way to D5. Just get them in order. The first piece is D1, and just like we've been doing, remember that your fabric needs to not only cover the boundaries of D1, but a 1/4 inch all the way around. You'll put the pretty side of the fabric down, and we'll simply add some glue right there, right in the middle. And I'm just going to position that shape. And that one's easy, right? That's a no-brainer. We can see that we easily have more than a 1/4 inch all the way around. And I might give a little bit more glue so nothing's moving here. All right. The first action of T is now going to happen, and that's trim. But the first thing that we need to do is say trim where. So D1 and D2, of course, are neighbors, and we have a line in between that. This is where the add a 1/4 ruler comes into play. And this is something I never even understood what this was until I did foundation paper piecing, because it didn't have a function in my sewing room. This is made for foundation paper piecing. And we'll get a close-up of that where you can see one side has kind of a beveled edge here and the other has a lip. Well, let's see what that's all about. We'll take the side that's tapered and we'll place it on the line between D1 and D2 and simply fold our paper back against that ridge. It's a nice ridge. So you have something to fold the paper against, right? Versus just kind of in the air. So I love that there's a nice rigid edge that I can easily fold that paper back onto. Now we rotate this so that this ledge, that has a little bit of a lip right there, I simply lock that in. I like to slide it up and down and make sure I'm all the way against that fold. I want to make sure I'm not out of that. So that I have now, see this distance from here to here? Guess what? That's 1/4 inch. Once we've done that, piece D2 comes next. Again, the goal is to be able to cover that whole space. Now, if you have a light box, it's easier to see, but if you don't, I simply put it in position. I simulate that. And if I know I have covered 1/4 inch all the way around, I simply hold that in position, flip this back over, and pin. Now in my sewing machine, this is another part of kind of the gear, the equipment. I have a size 70 needle. It's an extra sharp needle. It's a Microtex. These are incredibly sharp. They pierce this so beautifully because remember that later on we will be removing this paper. I want to really kind of perforate it now so removal's easy later. The other thing we do is we bring back our stitch length to a 1.5. A default setting on a BERNINA is a 2.5. So we have it way dialed back, again, to not only perforate the paper, but why? As we remove the paper, I want more thread in my fabric, right? I want more stability. So when I remove that, nothing's coming apart. All right, let's look at where are we going to start and where are we going to finish? Very important. So we know that our neighbor here is D3. Well, I want to start a few stitches before my line so that when I hit that point, I'm already sewing. Don't start way off the end, just a few stitches before. Come all the way through and come right off the edge, right? We'll go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so TSP, we've trimmed, we sewed, we press. So whether you want to do a finger press, maybe you're at a quilt retreat, hopefully at a Shabby Fabrics quilt retreat, would love to see you there. And you do a roll and press because you don't want to wait in line, right, for one of the 12 irons in the room because maybe you have to wait. Or if you're like me, I'm like, nope, I want a really firm press and I want to use an iron. Doesn't matter. However you press, iron, clover roll and press, or another tool, that's the P portion of TSP. Next is going to be number 3 here. The line between D2 and D3 is next. Same process. If you need to rip the paper just a little bit because we started before the line, that's fine. Don't think you need to preserve this paper. You don't. It's here to help you, but don't worry about ripping it just a little bit as needed. Again, we'll make a nice clean cut. D3, a long skinny piece here, needs to come into play. And we can place that here and simulate that, see if we have it. I think we do. Boy, that is tiny, tiny, tiny. Place this into position. So we just trimmed. We're going to sew, we're going to press. We're going to trim, sew, press. That's it. That's it. The part that was most confusing to me is the fact that I'm looking at numbers here and I'm kind of positioning it here, pinning here, and sewing on the side. The fact that the fabric's on the backside has always thought, whoever came up with this is absolutely brilliant. And once you get in the rhythm, easy peasy. Let's look at where we're going to sew. Let's look at that. That was another thing that kind of confused me. You can see this extends right off the edge. You could start sewing here if you'd like, but stop just a few stitches before. You might even want to simply turn this around and start a few stitches before and right off it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which end, but just know that on this, you're not sewing right off the end, right? Because we got to do some work in here. Okay, and we're going to press our P. And let's see where we are. See how we did. D4, right? So we've had this between D1 and D2, between D2 and D3. Now this line here, same process, right? So I'm just going to keep going. I'll stop talking. I'll just do it. When I come back, we're going to have all this ready to go. We're going to trim up this section. I'll use my spinning mat, and we're going to join these sections. This is it. I've just demystified this. So even if you are not watching that full tutorial, that's the process. That's the demystification of foundation paper piecing, right? And the precision of what it can produce is spectacular. Nothing that we could do with ordinary patchwork. So let me just finish up this section so we'll be able to trim it up, join it to the other sections, and have a complete shamrock block. So this is what our block looks like so far. And I've always thought, that can't be right. And normally in patchwork, if it looks wrong, it probably is. This is that contrary component of foundation paper piecing, where if it looks a little bit wonky, don't worry. Trust the process, as they say. Notice here, we have the solid lines, the dark solid lines, which will ultimately be, once it's sewn in, that's what you'll see. But out here on the lighter lines, this is where we will very precisely trim exactly on that line. And any little notching that you see is there for a reason. That's so that these pieces, once you complete each section, click together like a puzzle. Now, while I'm trimming this, you may be anxious to, as you complete each section, remove the paper. Don't. So many reasons to not remove the paper. Stability is certainly one of them, but there's not only important information written on these papers, but you now don't have to find a 1/4 inch seam allowance on your own. You will be able to simply sew on that solid line and know you're at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's look at these sections. We sewed that together, and you can see here, this is really kind of what we have going on. But let's flip this over. Let's look at this. Notice how this is section C, this is section D, A, B, C, and D. Logical, right? Our instructions, this is why we put these papers in for you. Again, most patterns don't have this much guidance. Here's our goal at Shabby. We want you to have fun and be successful every single time. This is why we put as much thought and care. And if you have suggestions for us, put them in the comments. We read every single comment. We're here for you. This is you. So we would love to get your input. If you think there's something else that we could be doing that would benefit you and maybe others as well. So please, please join the conversation. But the information here says, join this section to D and join this section to C. Awesome. I'm at their neighbors. So as I place them right side together, look at this. Oh, and I forgot one little notch right there. You see that right there? I'm just going to put my straight edge right there. We forgot to trim that. That's fine. Because I'm not used to seeing that sight picture, right? Let me flip this back over, make sure I've got everything where it should be. Yep. We know that when I place this to this, and let's look at that. Boom. There is no other place for this to be. That makes me so happy. So we are going to come right off the edge, so exactly on that line and right off. And I'm going to keep my 1.5 inch seam allowance still because, of course, this paper is going to be removed. I want to have more thread in a given distance. just to stabilize everything. All right, let's go sew this portion together. Let's see how we did. Look at how it just comes together so beautifully. We press these seams open just to distribute that bulk. And I'm going to let a clapper actually sit on that for just a second. I think my iron cooled down, but I'm going to let a clapper sit on there. Just like these two portions, we went ahead, we sewed everything together the papers were on, and we've discovered that if you remove the paper in that seam allowance, just in this seam allowance, when we get ready to sew AB to CD, and I'm going to remove the paper in that joining seam allowance as well, less bulk, right? It's going to help us nail that final union of these sections. It's just something we've discovered actually fairly recently because there's a lot of bulk coming together, of course, wherever these happen to join. So you're simply removing only that portion that is right there in that seam allowance. Do you have to do it? No. Have I made a lot of blocks without removing that? Most, yes. But if there's a way to reduce the bulk, why not do that? Now we can see that we will, I'm going to give that a good press again. My iron had cooled down, I think, while I was talking about TSP. Okay, much better, much better. So we can see now that we'll be placing these things. Let's just look at our site picture. We'll be placing these things right sides together. And when you bring this together and this together, look at that, right? It's just the precision. And I think probably my nature, my background of being a pilot and everything having to be so precise, I think this is why I love foundation paper piecing so much, is it's nearly foolproof if you just follow the procedures. Whereas patchwork is way more skill driven. It's way more, you have to have precise cuts, 1/4 inch seam allowance. It requires more skill, more experience to have consistently good results with patchwork. What I love about this process is even beginners can be successful right away. And I love that. I love that. Not everything in life is like that, right? Okay, my favorite part. It's the final look at this block. Look at that. Look at that. Everything just comes out. Awesome process. Awesome process. Of course, you're going to press that seam open. You begin to remove those papers. Those little nooks and crannies that my fingers just don't go into. This is part of my foundation paper piecing kit, right? My kit starts with my 1/4 rulers, my size 70 Microtex needles, a little bit of the sew line glue, and my tweezers. It's not a big kit, and TSP, like wrapping my mind around that, right? Once you have all of your shamrock blocks done, lay them out in a pleasing arrangement that you love. Of course, we have our sashing and our cornerstone, and we put all of that together, the top of that together. That's when we bring in our fusible fleece, our backing. We quilt everything together, just a simple 2-piece thread set on this one. And of course, binding and your hanging sleeve on the back. So it's been just an amazing journey in Series 2. And again, you've heard me say it. Even back when we were thinking about doing Series 1, I said, is there enough people that love this, that want to watch this? Boy, were we so excited to learn that it was so much more than we expected. So what's this announcement here? Well, we've heard people say, please tell me that there's something past Series 2 because I love these projects. And as you know, Series 1 and 2 has been pretty much the same size on the stand, or maybe kind of a small craft hanger by your office space or your sewing room, depending on how you want to display. So Series 3 is coming. So if you haven't subscribed and brought your friends along, do it right now. Because Series 3 will not be on this size. There's something coming your way. I don't want to reveal everything because I want to see you right back here next month as we launch Series 3. It is absolutely adorable, and I cannot wait to continue the fun of foundation paper piecing. Thank you so much for being with me on this series, and I cannot wait to see you on Foundation Paper Piecing Series 3. The fun continues.